To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome to FreshBaked Presents, a happy place where each week we combine our imagination with our experience to discuss, challenge, and explore all things Disneyland. I'm Ron Werner, and that, of course, is the indelible Mr. Fresh Baked himself, David Erickson.
What's up, Fresh Baked?
And this, of course, is the Fresh Baked Presents podcast, episode 4. Thanks for joining us, where today we talk Fantasyland, where it's at post-refurbs and Project Stardust, and where we think it's headed. We'll reach into the mailbag to answer your questions, and of course, our 5 things Disneyland. David, how's it going today?
It's going great, Ron. How are you?
I'm living the dream.
Aren't we all? It's been great. The dream is alive and well at Disneyland.
The dream
right now
is
with
back.
Keys.
It's back. It's back. So as a bit of an extension from last week, David, and the discussion we had around Tomorrowland, sort of a past, present, and future perspective, it only seemed fitting to explore Fantasyland and the perspective of where that is today after, there's been several attraction refurbishments, in addition to the enhancements that were brought on as part of Project Stardust, of course, the name that Disney gave to the alterations to the park's landscape, which was essentially what they called it was a overall beautification of the park, including making it easier for the crowds to move throughout the park as part of the Galaxy's Edge kind of anticipation. So with all that in mind, and having seen it all, what are your thoughts on the Fantasyland upgrades and your feelings on where you think it's headed?
Well, it's funny. It's the Project Stardust. You just made me remember the thought I had when it was happening. It was basically they could have just called it curb removal, Project Curb Removal, because that's what it feels like they did all over the place. They were just taking out curbs and making it easier for people to walk through the lands.
It really was.
But you can see that now with the entrances to both Fantasyland and Tomorrowland. There's no curbs there anymore. It's just a smooth. I don't know. It's an interesting look the way they went with that. But Fantasyland, I mean, this has been. People want to call it like New Fantasyland, and when's it going to happen, and where's it going? And it's been happening. It's been going for. They took a project that. They could have done all at once, and they've been doing it now for 7 or 8 years, starting with Alice in Wonderland. When they did, that was the first attraction that got the remodel. And I remember Alice in Wonderland. I was just blown away in my mind about how much I enjoyed what they did, just with some minor touches. The little bit of screens here and there. Nothing major, but it was nice. It was accented, and it was it was my first sort of peek into doing before and after kind of thing. I enjoyed the Alice in Wonderland update. Peter Pan was the same way. I feel like they did make Peter Pan better with the again with the screens and the change of the intro scene and the little pixie dust flying through. Enjoyed that a lot. Snow White. When it first hit, I'm like, this is great. I really like what they did here. It was excellent use of screens again. They really added life to the attraction. More light, more life, more vibrance. But when I think on it now, having experienced it now for a few months, it feels like a lot. I don't know what you think, but it feels like they it's like a little bit here and a little bit there, and then all of a sudden, if a little is good, a lot is better. And I kind of think that's what we got with Snow White. I'm still trying to process if I like that much more change than what they did there.
That's interesting. I guess my initial, you've been on it, I'm sure, several more times than I have. I have probably been on it 5 or 6 times since they did that, at least about that. But my thoughts are, I just like it because it's so much brighter and so much more color. Like the mission that they were trying to overcome, which was being a little bit too scary. Not that I thought it was, but I understood their point, and they definitely were successful in changing that.
Not scary at all.
Not scary at all. And I guess everything you said is valid and makes sense. In my mind, I just recall going through it saying, I like that. It's so much brighter, more colorful. And when it's subtle, the use of lighting and just polishing things simply makes things look, they're not doing a lot to it, even though they did plenty to that. But you're not doing a lot to it, but you're just improving the aesthetics and the visuals so much. So I agree. I liked Alice in Wonderland. I like Snow White. Peter Pan's was very welcomed. I guess I never really thought of Snow White as being a little bit too much.
Well, I'm not sure if too much is the right word or not. It's just more.
Right.
And that's something that I didn't really notice at first. I would say this: if they were to build Snow White new again today, it would be certainly far closer to that, and than it was, than the original iteration, of course. And I think people will be like, "Oh my gosh, Snow White! It's amazing!" Not having known the old Snow White, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. I'm definitely not. All the changes that take place, all the little refurbs that go on internally on these like classic dark rides, I am definitely not one that's bothered by them. I'm so very much into just changing with the times to some degree. Now, like, I think the one, I mean, it's in Fantasyland. The one that you almost have to keep as close to the original as possible is Toads. It's just because of what it is in terms of it's a brilliant.
Can you imagine if they went Snow White on Toads?
But yeah, right. It would ruin it entirely because what Toads is. So that's the one that I would be so like even like the plywood panels that open. I mean, it seems so carnival-y, but it's so tremendous. You can't really do anything to Toads to touch it up like you can certainly do with Pinocchio and Snow White and Alice in Wonderland.
By the way, those are rumored to be they're on deck. They've got plans, I guess, for both of them.
Pinocchio, I've heard. Toads, I've
well, you can't not do Toads. If you're going to do all the others, you can't not do Toads.
Well, I just don't see what you can do to Toads that would be an improvement, where the other things I can see that would be an improvement. Because Toads' charm is that it is, in fact, that dark ride from a carnival from 100 years ago. Or not.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. I just hope that, in the way that Alice, the refurbs for Alice and Peter Pan didn't change the ride, like the essence of the attraction, whereas I do think that the updates to Snow White changed the essence of the Snow White dark ride. That hopefully, to your point, they won't do that at Toads.
Right. Well, the thing is, I mean, that was at least going in, we knew that. We're saying they told us this is a scary attraction, and we're gonna make it not scary. So it certainly changed the experience, and I guess to them they would say that that's a success. But I agree with you. It changed it dramatically. It was a little bit of a. It was a little bit of a shock to your
kind
point.
Of like I said, I didn't really. I was so excited about the change and being able to see it that I hadn't really had time to reflect on it. But as I look back on it, I'm like, God, man, they really changed that attraction.
Yeah, I'm such one of those. We've talked about this before, but even when it comes to film, if there's a film that I do not like, I talk about the things about it that I appreciated or did like, because it's art, and I inherently struggle with bashing something that. So you're right about, like, as soon as I got off Snow White, I was like, I loved it. It was amazing. A great job. They did everything. But you do bring up some good points, and it certainly was a little bit of a shock to the system. Like, whoa, that's a different attraction. It really is.
It really is.
So to those points, what else happened? What is going on? I guess in Tomorrowland, because there's still things. There's not scrims, but there's construction walls over by It's a Small World.
That's Toontown though. That's more for Toontown. Which we can get into.
The Fantasy Theater and It's a Small World, but I hear you.
Yeah, Fantasyland Theater. Let's double back, because there have been some really terrifying rumors with regard to things happening at Fantasyland. Most notably, this is pre-COVID, obviously, but most notably they were talking about bringing over Beauty and the Beast. Both the dark ride and the restaurant. The dark ride from where's it at? I want to say Hong Kong, but I don't know if that's right. And then
I think so.
Yeah, and then Be Our Guest from Walt Disney World. And there's really the scariest one of all was the one where they were talking about taking out either or both Storybook Land, Casey Jr., and dark rides that exist already in Fantasyland. And when I heard this rumor, I'm sorry, what now? Like, how is that even possible?
They even mentioned originally Snow White and Pinocchio because that's how big it was. There's just that was just laughable. That's not happening.
You make any modern dark ride in Fantasyland, as I call it, Fantasyland proper, it'll decimate the entire land.
It really will, and it's so funny because I think Beauty and the Beast is grossly underrepresented. I don't know why.
You mentioned that, yeah.
I'm just partial. I guess I can't specifically speak to why, but when I think Disney growing up, Beauty and the Beast is just as Disney as it gets. Yes, of course, all the other ones are as well. Beauty and the Beast just really is. And it also feels like it fits Disney well. You know, Belle's Amazing Princess, the Beast, the story, the whole thing. So if there was ever, this question was asked, if there was ever going to be another IP that would come in or whatever, I would like it to be Beauty and the Beast, but not even close to at that cost, at that expense. You can't destroy something to bring in something else that is just, you would change the face of Disneyland by doing that.
There's a lot of ways that you can sort of, I don't know if desecrate is the right word. If you could desecrate the legend of Walt Disney.
It is.
But if you ripped out Fantasyland to bring in Beauty and the Beast, I would call that a desecration.
It really would be that. There's no question about it because most of opening day Disneyland is Fantasyland,
right?
Yeah,
and those films that you talked about, representing the Disney catalog, as it were. Those films built the Disney studio. Snow White built the Disney studio. Pinocchio and Peter Pan. Well, Peter Pan is later, but Pinocchio, Peter Pan, even Toads, early on, and I don't know, man. I like paying respect to that part of the Disney history, and it's not all about bringing in the latest IP for me. IP is IP. I mean, Snow White is still a great IP in my opinion.
Well, right. Not only that, but I feel like you know how I am with the history of things. Snow White is what. If it wasn't for Snow White's success, we wouldn't have any of it.
You're kidding?
That. So
it built everything. Yeah. It built the studio. It built the studio in Burbank, which built all the other movies, which built Disneyland.
Yeah, Snow White was 1937, and Walt was a crazy man to think that he could do a feature-length animation. And that was 1937. Disneyland's 1955. Yeah. That is the direct correlation of the success of Snow White. So that's why that ride feels you can't really say untouchable, as they just completely changed.
I'll say it. It's untouchable, Ron.
No. I meant it's untouchable. It's not going anywhere. I meant it's hard to use the words untouchable when they literally just refurbed it and changed it from scary to enchanted.
Well, that right there. Them doing that, them updating Snow White is definitely a signal for anybody who's afraid that something like that might happen. That is a signal that it ain't gonna happen. Right, they wouldn't have done that if they didn't have plans for it.
Exactly. Well, that's also the conversation about Toontown. Everybody wants Toontown to go away, and Mickey and Minnie, it ain't going nowhere.
Right here in my notes, sir. The fact that they brought in Mickey's Runaway Railway to Toontown means that's going to be here to stay. Toontown isn't going anywhere.
100%.
But that
just
was
read the tea leaves.
Yeah, Toontown was another rumored destination. They're going to make it frozen. They were going to turn Toontown into Frozen Land, or whatever you want to call it. That was a rumor. And they were actually that was going to creep into the Fantasyland Theater. The whole thing was going to become that. But bringing in Runaway Railway puts an end to any conversation about Toontown, which, by the way, is an interesting decision in my opinion. Even though I'm grateful for Runaway Railway because it looks like a fun ride, it looks like something new, it looks like something interesting, and something that I would be into, and it's paying tribute to Mickey, which doesn't have a ride. I'm confused by the decision to put it there. Because it cancels any possibility of expanding Fantasyland, if you did think about that. It cancels any opportunity of expanding Galaxy's Edge, if you thought about that. And I thought it fit better at the backlot, which was desperate for something new. The backlot at DCA needs anything.
Yeah.
Because the Runaway Railway was originally rumored to be going there. So I'm not sure what happened in that thought-making process where they decided they wanted to put it in Toontown, because it's just a very confusing decision to me.
Well, I think it's a very confusing decision to choose Toontown specifically, but for it to remain in Disneyland, which of course, where else are you going to put it if you don't put it in Toontown? But it just felt like for Mickey to have his ride finally at there, I felt like it did have to be in Disneyland, and there's nowhere else to put it besides Toontown. And the back lot, although it would have been amazing over there because it's just something so desperately needed at DCA. DCA just felt a little out of place because there's so little representation over there, which is the argument for why you should put it over there. But it also the whole thing is very like unsettling because what are their intentions and plans for Toontown? And I don't think they have a clue whatsoever. So they're like, let's just throw Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway back there, and then that'll buy us a decade. To figure out what else we're going to do.
You need a 30-40 year solution, not a 10-year solution.
Well, they do, and and not only that, but they're not going to roll these things all out. This is the same conversation with Disneyland Forward and Tomorrowland and stuff.
Yeah.
These things, they want to promote the park in ways where new things come that they can do. So for you to think simultaneously those things are going to happen is crazy, I think, because they're going to do one thing at a time, and then a few years later they can have buzz for something. That next new thing.
I hate that, man.
Yeah, that's just marketing, business rollout stuff. But you're right, and also to see how much successful it is. Buy time. It seems like what they're doing. Toontown is a crazy. I think I like Toontown in theory. I just don't like what Toontown is. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is another one of my all-time favorite movies, and I think it's one of the most underrated, even though, yes, it gets a lot of clout. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit is a film you will never see again because it was done that good, and nobody will ever spend that kind of money to do what they did again without CGI. Yeah. It was phenomenal, and that movie also... we're getting off track, but Little Mermaid gets credit for the Renaissance period, the Renaissance era for Disney. But it was the year before that Who Framed Roger Rabbit really got Disney back on track, and then they were able to do the Little Mermaid, and now it was just the snowball started going, and Disney really came back strong. But Fantasyland, so the rumors, the Pinocchio, what have you heard specifically in regards to, or have you?
I haven't, no. I don't. There's been no. They're not going to tell us. They're not going to tell us until it's almost done, practically. I just know that I know that there are plans. That discussions are in place. There is an intent to do both Pinocchio and Toads, but what like I said, hopefully it's just minor things and they keep the main essence of the attraction.
Yeah, Pinocchio I can see. Pinocchio is one of the. I could see them doing. Pinocchio has so much color to it and so many different worlds and different scenes and different things that I can see Pinocchio. It wouldn't be heartbreaking for me to see them really, like you were talking about the drastic changes in terms of a little more that was done to Snow White. Pinocchio more could be fun, actually. But Toads, boy, they better tread lightly because... I mean, I'm talking anything more than a Swifter to wipe down the plywood paneling is going to tick me off.
It'll be a CGI Swifter, though.
It's too delicate. That's the other thing. There will be no possibility. Well, I say that. Of course, I don't know. But I will be floored beyond belief if any screen ever enters Toads.
Well, yeah, they're not built for that. That attraction, that building. But I guess the other ones weren't either. But it's hard to retrofit a 60-year-old attraction for screens,
right.
For how do you do that? Where do you even hang it? I mean,
why is that even on their list? I don't know. I can give you 100 things off the top of my head that greatly need to be improved, even if subtly. Than Toads, I feel like that's a dangerous game to play.
Well, they're in love with
that's probably why
that. They're in love with projections right now as the cost-effective way of expressing themselves. So,
right.
I guess on a long enough timeline, you regress back to the the beginning, and things get more analog. Hopefully, right. I don't know if we're in that direction yet, but not so far.
What about your thoughts on what are some of the other things? So we know that they redid King Arthur's Carousel. They obviously they touched up the Sleeping Beauty's castle.
Yep.
They painted the exterior.
Both of those, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to let you go on a little bit. As well as exterior of Snow White's that they painted, that was probably the biggest shock to the system color wise. What were your thoughts?
Well, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I very much enjoyed what they did to the castle. I like the color scheme that they used there. I thought there was a very tasteful update to Carousel. I mean, it's as if they didn't do anything, but it's still better.
Right.
But I do not like what they did to the exterior of Snow White. I know because it's a castle. It's a dungeon-like castle, and you can't make it anything else other than what it was. And they're trying to make it happy and sunny, and with the little accoutrement out in front, which that little the banner that's out there, the ribbon thing. If I would love to sneak in there and just chisel that thing off the front of the castle. Because I don't like it at all. It's fine. No. I get it. You don't have to. I hate when they try to make something that it clearly isn't. And that castle is not. You just redo the castle. If you can't make it what it isn't. This trying to.
Yeah, paint solves everything, right?
Yeah, you just can't. Just making it a brighter paint and putting a frickin' bow on the front of it is not going to make it not a dungeon-looking castle. I mean, I'm just sorry, it's not. And so don't insult us by doing that. It just doesn't look right. I don't like it at all. I don't mind what they did on the inside. It's fine. But the outside, leave it the castle. Just leave it the way it was. The color scheme was great. The gray color scheme and all that. I thought that was fine. There was no reason to do that. No reason at all.
Right. It's interesting that it took it from such a classic looking thing. Like it had a feel and it felt real, if you will, to now it just feels so almost cartoony. Like like it's like they did it for the sake of, well, we painted that, so we might as well paint this. I agree with Sleeping Beauty's castle. I think even at first look, I was like, I'm on board. It looks good. Yeah. I know at first there was the what do you call them, the starlights or whatever that yellow was.
Oh yeah.
I got over that in about 5 seconds. I think it looks great. The pictures look great. Big fan of that. King Arthur's Carousel, same thing. It needed the touch up, especially being centrally located like that. That was a big. And that's the other thing with that project is they have to. It takes them an enormous amount of time because they have to break that thing down all the way, tear it all the way apart, and go piece by piece to put it just to get a horse out of it. They don't just come out. You got to take all the floor and you got to take everything out to get them out. So that project was done and now won't be touched again for 50 more years.
Yeah, and that's okay with me. That's okay with me.
Yeah, exactly. I was just trying to think of anything. So the Fantasy Fair, or not the Fantasy Fair, but the or even Fantasy Fair, but Fantasy Fair Theater or the theater down by Toontown.
Yeah, Fantasyland Theater.
Any Fantasyland Theater? Any thoughts on?
Well, that's all that's left.
Or rumors.
Yeah, that's all that's left for any possible update or expansion or anything like that. It's the Fantasyland Theater and the back half of Autopia, which really isn't a lot of space in terms of the way it's configured. It's more of a rectangle than a square. When you try to plot that piece of land out, the Fantasyland Theater is right up against Storybook Land. They share a border basically, and so if they were going to do something, that would be the only place left. But there's not a lot that they can do. You could not fit, for example, Beauty and the Beast in that space.
No.
You could fit a restaurant, which I think was they were trying to put the restaurant on the Autopia side over there, the back half of Autopia, which is something we discussed as part of the Tomorrowland rumors. So again, that's kind of why I thought it was a strange decision that they did do that with Runaway Railway, because now they have narrowed. They've severely narrowed any sort of potential for Fantasyland. But having said that, and this is something that I've said many times before, that's okay. Doing nothing is a fine alternative. Doing nothing is okay with me. Because I actually believe in the idea of live entertainment in the parks. I believe that though I'm not a huge fan of Mickey and the Magical Map, you need that kind of stuff.
Yes, I agree. You can't eliminate all of that because then you're losing the essence, and also people rest throughout the day.
Yeah.
Disneyland is I go every Saturday, and I me and Champ look at the phone to see how far we've gone. We try to get 15 miles, but we consistently are around 12 miles. And that's just having fun going to the park. That's 12 miles on our feet all day long.
Yep.
And the train, there's so many attractions and so many events or things that you can do that will get you off of your feet. That is super enjoyable. And those quiet times and places are very much needed in either park.
I look back fondly on any moments that I've ever had where I've gone to the Fantasyland Theater, gotten a pretzel and, that strawberry slush thing, and
Yeah.
and watched the show and just been able to put my feet up for a little bit. That is part of going to Disneyland. It's not all about rides. It's not all about that. And I hope they don't do anything to the theater. And,
I agree.
Bring more entertainment. In fact, not even, let's not lose that. Let's get in more, because that's something that I've noticed in the parks recently. Now I'm kind of spoiled. I get to go all the time, so maybe it's easy for me to run out of things to do. But I have found myself wanting each time I go back, I've found myself wanting for more things to do than just, riding Space Mountain and Big Thunder again, And you need those live entertainments.
Yeah, you really do. And they're great. I mean, even if you don't love them, every time I watch any of them, the only one I have problems with is DCA's when they had Frozen live at the Hyperion, because I went to that thing 3 times and some light or something broke 3 times.
Yeah.
There was delays. I couldn't believe it. No way. What is my luck? But Mickey and the Magical Map was fun, and you're out. The other thing that makes it so great is you're outside. You're under the trees, like you said. You're eating a pretzel. You're doing whatever, and you're watching this outside show with the music playing, going through your Disney favorites. You know what? It's fun.
Way better than going to the Hyperion, in my opinion.
Yes, I agree. The only reason the Hyperion works is A, because you need to see the show just to say you did, and B, when it's 110 outside, it's nice and cool inside there.
Yeah.
But before we have to move on, and before we do, I still want to talk about the construction walls near Toontown. What are they?
Okay.
I don't know what they are.
That's actually part of the Toontown update. They're going to freshen up Toontown. So behind those walls are actually new paving stones. They took out the blacktop as you walk into it, and they're putting in paving stones. And I would imagine it's going to continue on into Toontown as well. They're starting there in terms of updating Toontown, as best as I can tell anyway. And I think it's going to extend further on back towards the train as well, I believe.
Nice. I looked at it and I was standing there saying, what? First of all, what's behind here? Because there's nothing here.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? So anyway, good to know. And David, that will move us right along, I think, because unless there's anything else you want to add about.
No, I think I'm good there.
So of course, busy week in Disney history, as it always is, and a couple of the fun things I discovered in some of the research this week, many of which you'll know about. Most of them are the closing of attractions or the opening of attractions. But this week in 1978, the Stage Door Cafe restaurant opened in Frontierland. And I didn't realize that it took that long for the Stage Door to get there.
There's so much demand for average chicken wings or chicken strips and fish
even
and
then.
chips. They needed those chicken strips, Ron.
Right, even then. Here's another fun one that everybody's a big fan of. Big Thunder Mountain Railroad opened on September 2nd, 1979 this week. And it cost $15.8 million to build, David. And don't you worry, FreshBaked, I did the math for you. That would be $59.4 million today.
I was going to... Really?
Yeah.
Is that all?
Funny that you say is that all, because when I was thinking that was going to be like a funny little quip to talk about, and I was like, wow, I thought it'd be a lot more than that.
Yeah.
$59.4 million ain't a whole lot, really.
Well, they talk about billion to build Galaxy's Edge, 2 rides for $1 billion.
Right.
And it's gorgeous. Big Thunder's gorgeous.
Not only is Big Thunder gorgeous, but you talk about a ride when it comes to IPs and non-IPs. Big Thunder has nothing to do with nothing except being great and outside, and you could see it. And it is Big Thunder has always been my favorite, but the more you think about it, when you get down to the bare bones, and if you were going to start to write like a little 15-minute documentary on it or whatever, you would realize how unbelievably great that ride truly is on its own merits.
It does not get, I mean, it does get respect, but still not enough, in my opinion. Big Thunder and Tony Baxter deserve all the praise in the world. That needs to be an IP. And I know they're talking about doing the Disney Society of Explorers kind of thing. Society of Explorers and Adventurers, and there's a character associated with Big Thunder that's part of that. That might be an IP in the future.
Right.
But that's what I want. That's what I want, is to turn existing rides into IPs as opposed to going the other way around.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I also think that the future state of the MCU or all these different universes being on attraction to attraction, like you just kind of alluded to, that sort of a thing would be cool and fun. And hey, you know what? Try it until it fails. And if it fails, I just mean try it to know if it fails. I don't mean until it fails. It could be great. Some more fun, interesting things. Adventure Through Inner Space attraction closed at Tomorrowland after an 18-year run in 1985. What thoughts on that ride?
Overrated.
85. Yeah. That was my wheelhouse years, and I still have almost no memory. I remember going on it. I remember going on it, and we just skipped it all the time. It didn't. It does have the distinction of being an actual ride that was not an exhibit or a show that did not require a ticket in the early years.
There was a moment when it was like that,
It did require a C ticket eventually, because what happened, funny doing research on this, is the kids just kept, doing a loop-de-loop. Yeah. They kept doing it. So they were basically fast passing themselves and filling up the queue. So then that changed. A couple of other very interesting things that I found interesting. The gummy bears, remember their life in Disneyland?
Yeah. People forget.
The NBC aired their last episode of the Disney's Adventures of the Gummy Bears after 4 years and 65 episodes. And even on in 1991, the motorboat cruise's final 2 years before construction on Toontown, ended its 35-year run, there were gummy bear plywood cutouts on the banks of the cruise promoting the adventures of the gummy bears, telling the story, supposedly, as cardboard plywood cutouts can do, of how the bears were making gummy berry juice, David.
I want to know how that worked, actually. Yes, I do want to know.
Me too. I remember frightening characters of gummy bear characters in Disneyland back in those years.
Yeah.
That made no sense to me at the time, and they make little sense to me today. The Spirit of Pocahontas show gave its last performance at Disneyland. It opened in 1995 and closed in 1997. The same day that the film was released in theaters, and of course it followed Beauty and the Beast, which was a tough act to follow, but it was successful for 2 years. And as far as shows go on stages, that 2-year run's a good one. The Art Corner, I did not know this, but this is very cool. The Art Corner exhibit closed in 1966, and it opened at 55. I didn't know this, David. It was a walkthrough exhibit and gift shop. Walt wanted to incorporate the magic of animation into the park. So this large open space with a series of wall displays and art supplies and kits were for sale. But the back wall was a walkthrough exhibit where real animators sat at desks and sketched characters, landscapes, and Disneyland icons in full view of the public. Guests could also purchase these original celluloid drawings or the original celluloid drawings used in the animation of the classic Disney films. And still today, David and FreshBaked, I did not know this, the Art Corner is credited with saving many priceless original celluloid drawings. Wow. That, I didn't even have whispers of that.
I remember reading about that, doing research for something else, and I came across that. But that's still a thing today. They still draw today. Although that is closed now, but at the Disney Honor Shop, you can still watch them draw today.
You can, and I talk to those artists all the time because, as you might expect, they also draw tattoo art. And hey, who doesn't want to talk about that? Yeah. And nothing better than closing out this segment on Disney history, this week in Disney history, of things that I think are very interesting. This one's not so interesting, but it's funny. The Maliboomer, David, closed in 2010 of this week.
The world wept.
Yep. 4 Gs, though, David. 4 Gs you went on that little 180-foot trek. 4 Gs.
Well,
but the Maliboomer, I was so disappointed with my first time stepping out, fresh out of college, coming back to California, and I'm going to Disneyland, and check out this new park. I talked my buddies into going. We paid like $50, I think it was at the time, just to get into DCA, not even Disneyland, just DCA. And we went on the Maliboomer, and we kind of walked around the bay. Now knowing what it is, you just basically walked all the way around, and we were like, they were so mad at me. I'm like, I didn't know. We paid $50 to go on the Maliboomer. I was like, yeah, sorry guys.
Nobody misses the Maliboomer.
Yeah. With that said, it is mailbag time, David.
All right.
So Marshall St. Laurent Darsh asks, will Disneyland ever get a new non-IP ride? Kind of right on cue. If so, what land or ride theming do you think has the best chance?
To answer the first question, no. Well, okay, let me go ahead and expand on that. Not until there's new management. But there is a very explicit directive at Disney right now that IP is the barrier to entry. Nothing happens at Disneyland or any park without an IP attached to it. So, and by the way, people always ask this in comments, what is an IP? IP means intellectual property, i.e. something, a film or a character that Disney owns. Star Wars, Toy Story, Finding Nemo, that kind of thing. So that nothing is going to no attractions, no shows, no anything will happen in Disneyland without an IP. Sorry.
I would totally agree with that. It's just Disney business. It's the risk thing. It is such a tremendous risk to come up with an original idea and hope people like it. No matter how great it is, it still tends to take a little bit of time for that to really flourish and blow up. So yeah, the IP attraction is not happening anytime soon. Or like David said, I agree. There's no way we're gonna have an original show on one of the few stages that are there. So thanks for the question, but I don't have much positive to say on that in anytime soon.
It's interesting though. Before you go to the next one,
go ahead.
I find it the reason, like you said, is risk. They want to know that people are going to be attracted to a thing that they build in the parks because it costs so much money to do these things. The part of that I find curious is that they don't mind risking $200 million to make the movie that may or may not work. There's no proof that a movie's going to work, but that costs as much as a ride does, a single ride. So I'm not sure why that exists, but anyway, there you go.
That is true. There's also a certain level of box office money revenue is going to come back and usually make its money back.
True.
Because you know that you
That's
have
true.
such a loyal base. But still, the other thing is, I think that, to your point, that reverse engineering that they're doing is they're doing the original content on the screen that they can then bring into the park if need be. Because Frozen and Arendelle, Tangled, the likelihood of them entering the parks, I think, is strong, frankly. I just think it is. They want princesses, and those are franchises that were extremely successful and continue to be. So there's your IP expansion, and hopefully it's not Disneyland Forward. But I digress. David, Eric O. Evert asks, if you could only ride 3 Disneyland rides for the rest of your life, what would they be and why? And before you answer, I'm very upset that I did not do my homework on this.
Well, I got torn. I'm torn. I have 4, and I keep going back and forth. Okay, so Disneyland Railroad, no doubt about it. That's number 1. I would ride that. I ride that almost every week. I want to pick the monorail also because I just love the way it. I love seeing the park from different vantages and up above, up on high. You get to see the whole park kind of thing. But I decided not to put that in there because I already did the circle tour with the train. So I'm going to go with the train, and then Big Thunder for fun or for thrills, and then Casey Jr., to dial it down a little bit. So basically, all the trains. I just want to do all the trains. I'll do those 3.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent. Mine is just goes back to childhood, like what I could imagine not being a part of Disneyland. So, Pirates. I feel like Pirates, even though it's changed since I was a child, but that's just an enjoyable boat ride. I love Pirates. The train. So if I only get 3 for the rest of my life, I want to cover all the bases. So Pirates, it covers that. Nostalgia and Dark Ride. The train gives me a visual of the entire park. I get to see everything across the park. I guess I don't know what my third one would be. I want to say a fast roller. Big Thunder. It's got to be Big Thunder.
Yeah, you get it.
It's got to be. Because I'm outside, I can visualize. It's my thrill ride. So Pirates, the train, and Big Thunder. I'm a happy
Big Thunder
camper
is a
with
total
those
package.
3. It sure is. David, Tanisha Burks asks, if you could do another seasonal temporary overlay of any attraction, which would it be, and what would the overlay theme be? And before you answer, just play along, because I know what your answer is going to be.
I don't know, actually. I will say this. Wait, let me go back. Give me that question again.
If you could do another seasonal or temporary overlay of any attraction, which would it be, and what would the overlay theme be?
There's really only 2 seasons that really trigger a change in the parks, and that's Halloween and Christmas, in my opinion. There isn't another holiday that really screams, we need this reskin or something like that, an overlay. So I would say definitely more of that. I definitely want, obviously, Jingle Cruise back. But what I would like to see is just, I want to see it in every land. I want to see it in every land. Maybe not every ride, but more rides with overlays. But every land screaming Christmas and Halloween. The shops, I just don't feel like they go far enough. They just do Main Street basically, and then a little bit in Frontierland, and that's for both Halloween and for Christmas. The only other thing I would think of is Easter, and when I say that, well, that's going to actually, I don't want to bring that up yet because that is related to something else that's going to happen later on in the podcast.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what I would want to. I don't know what warrants it. Like, I don't know what attraction. Like, you can't add a snowman on Big Thunder Mountain, obviously. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard.
No.
It's it's hard to think of an attraction. So that means it would have to be a dark ride, and you don't want it to be any of the classic ones in Fantasyland, like we talked about. And you already touched on it earlier. Is the first thing that came to mind for me that could do it and get away with it, and they previously did it, was Jingle Cruise. So that really is the one that I feel like could work. But outside of that, I just can't think of any attraction that has a overlay type of that they're not already doing, for that matter.
Yeah.
So I guess Jingle Cruise, which is an easy answer. All right, David, one last mailbag question before we move on to the always interesting 5 things Disneyland. So, Louis Trossel, or maybe Lewis, Big Lou 154 will say, do you feel that DCA is still a celebration of California and the highlights of what the state has to offer? And if not, what would you rename it that better reflects what the park has to offer?
No, not at all. It hasn't been a reflection of California for almost, well, since they started doing DCA 2.0. They've been chipping away at that idea. Frankly, I think people need to move on from because I still hear that, like, why do they call it California Adventure? That's the name of the park. But no, it's not a California park anymore. It hasn't been for a long time. As far as the name goes, Pixarland, I don't know. I don't know what else to call it. I mean, Disneyland 2. There's really no. They're not going to rename it. They're not going to, because just why? There's no point in doing that. But I couldn't think of a fitting name for it because it doesn't really have one.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I definitely agree that the there's nothing represented in California. Even soaring California is now soaring around the world. I mean, even the little remnants of California, or the Incredicoaster took over.
Yeah.
Soaring, every California representation other than the Redwood Forest, or not the Redwood Forest, but the why can't I think of the name?
Redwood Creek.
Redwood Creek. Yeah, there's just really not I guess the grizzly bear you could say is California. I don't know because it's on the flag, but really there's zero representation, and that's just semantics if you're just going to try to like tie those two together anymore.
Yeah.
As far as the name goes, David said it best. I mean, it's branding. You can't rebrand unless you're changing.
You can't rename it.
You can't rename it. I mean, if you were gonna, like, first of all, Disney's California Adventure, so it's California, so we are in California. They call it Hong Kong Tokyo, so or
Hong Kong Disney,
Hong Kong Disney, things like that. So Disney's California Adventure, or if you want to get real creative, California's Disney Adventure. I don't know.
You know what? Just call it DCA. And then you don't have to worry about the California anymore. Just call it DCA. Yeah, that's what I do.
Oh, me too. Exactly. Me too.
Yeah.
You're not the rebranding is just not going to happen. And it's not worth it. It's known for what it is, whether you like it. Look at the Utah Jazz. There's an NBA team that came from New Orleans. There's no Jazz in Utah, and there's no Lakers in LA.
I was going to say, what about the Lakers?
So, and I mean, guess what? Nobody cares at all.
Nobody cares. Well, some people do, but they should stop caring.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
They like to bring it up in things like this and use it as a reference of things that are not going to change. So that does bring us. Thank you for the questions. Again, always getting an overwhelming amount of them, and it's fun to go through them. And like I've previously said, ask again if you didn't get brought up today, because we'll get to them, especially if we see them more than once. It's obviously something that we want to cover. So thank you for submitting the questions, as always. And that, David, brings us to this week's 5 Things Disneyland. And our topic today, which is always interesting because I feel like it's under the radar. Nobody knows until this moment, until we announce it, now that I think about it. Because it's only referenced or referred to as 5 Things Disneyland. So today's 5 Things Disneyland are top 5 defunct things we wish were back in Disneyland. Once we're here, no longer exist. David, that's a fun one. It's going to get us in less trouble than last week.
Perhaps, because these are going to be things that people love.
Right.
But I don't. This my first one. I don't know if this counts, but it feels like it's defunct. Is Paint the Night? I feel like Paint the Night died, and right? Is it dead? Is Paint the Night dead?
Dead-ish.
Well, I miss Paint the Night very, very much. It is the single best parade, in my opinion, that Disney's ever done.
Oh, the horses, my friend. You can continue, and then I will rudely interrupt you.
No, go for it.
My number 5, I don't know if this counts because, well, it is Main Street Electrical Parade Defunct.
It's coming back.
I know. That's why. Well, I had my own way to open it and speak to it, but I was just kind of copying exactly what you had just said, because it's the same, exactly along the same lines. So Main Street Electrical Parade. Each week, I feel like I say that I'm cheating a little bit here. And once again, I am cheating a little bit here because we do know it's coming back. But it's just one of those things that returns for a minute. And then they tell us that we're never going to see it again. So because I want to use every opportunity I can to speak about the Main Street Electrical Parade, I'm putting it at number 5. And by the way, I put it at 5 because I know it's coming back again. I would have been my number 2. It would have been. It makes me happy. Baroque Hoedown makes me happy. And if it doesn't make you happy, who hurt you? And this is not funny. It's okay to ask for help.
Well, Paint the Night makes me happy.
And Paint the Night does too. Paint the Night is great. And nothing bad to say about it whatsoever. It's funny. We each start with a parade. I did not see that coming. Number 4.
Well, my number 4 is probably going to be something you didn't think of. I'm going to assume. I'm going to head over to DCA, and I'm going to say Electronica. I miss Electronica. I was new to covering Disneyland at the time when Electronica first was a thing, so I still have memories of it. And it was a reason to be in DCA at night. It was a reason to make the trip from Disneyland over there, because it was just a lot of fun. It was kind of a rave, which, you know, it's not really my scene per se, but I love the music and the lights and the good times and the happiness, the good vibes, and I feel like DCA very badly needs. So, you know, they tried it with the Mad Tea Party, which was pretty good, but it wasn't as good as Electronica. In DCA, man, they need something like that really bad, I think.
Yeah, you're right. I did not think of it. I did. What's funny though is I did think of Mad Tea Party, but it didn't make the list. You're right. DCA needs that kind of energy. It just does. Good call. Good call. I also veered into something that I know you've certainly thought of, but Country Bears Jamboree, and I'm telling you, it goes back to my experience. Like, this is my Disneyland, my experience, my childhood growing up with my family and my grandparents, and it's like the best memories. I know I'm a dad now, but my childhood best memories. We're going to Country Bear Jamboree, and what's funny is I complained like crazy that I had to go see that damn bear show, but my grandma wanted to go, and my grandma raised me, and whatever my grandma liked and loved, I cherish. So the Country Bear Jamboree was fun and cool, and I wish it was back just because it was so unique and so different, and it was, you know, one of Walt's things that he wanted. One of Walt's oddball, quirky little things that he wanted. So the fact that there would be, we talked about earlier, a show that would exist and something that's old school, that, you know, it would just be cool to see it there.
Quick little story on this. I equate Country Bear to Adventures Through Inner Space in terms of nostalgia. When Laramie started doing stuff at Walt Disney World, one of the first things I asked him to do, because I thought I missed it too, I said, you got to go record, you got to go watch Country Bear Jamboree, film it, put it on the YouTubes, let me see it. And he did, and I watched it, and I was like, all right, I'm good. It's too long. Well, it's too long.
And that's after shaving like 6 minutes off it, of all the commentary of going back and forth, like little, you know, jokes and sidebar stuff. Yeah. No, that's probably true, but again, nostalgia is nostalgia, so it doesn't matter how terrible it is. Like, your memory. Look at every movie we loved growing up. Go back and watch Ewok Adventure right now and tell me how phenomenal that movie is. Number 3, David.
Number 3. This is going to be a deep cut. I want to see the Matterhorn Mountain Climbers again.
That's good.
When they brought that back for Limited Time Magic, 6-7 years ago or whatever, it was the coolest thing ever. I feel like that is the very definition of extra. It's going a little bit more that Disney could do, and it just changes everything for me. I love watching those guys climb the Matterhorn. I love watching them. You know, the what do you call it? What's that music that they play? I don't know why I'm blanking on the kind of music. Anyway, the Swiss polka music.
Swiss, yeah.
They had actual polka players up there with the accordion and everything. I miss the mountain climbers, and they should bring them back at least every summer.
Yeah, that was cool. That did make my list, or it didn't make my list, but it was on my list of things when I was trying to think of, you know, something that was unique, a little bit off the radar. But then when I went to these 5, it was a little bit of nostalgia. My number 3, it's funny that how similar we are in terms of aesthetics and what the visual representation of what we want to see. For me, it's Rocket Jets. I don't know how great the ride is. I mean, I do, but it was fine. It was like whatever. It was just the aesthetics of seeing it from the ground, and then also the experience of seeing the park from up there. Just the Rocket Jets was just cool, and it was a part of a larger aesthetic of Tomorrowland that just brought so much kinetic energy to that part of the park, and that visual. I tell you what, you want to see visuals. I'll get into that in a little bit, but old vintage Disneyland pictures. And when you see the rocket,
great.
Oh man, it's so cool. And I think aesthetics are really, really important. Even like a small little segue. Think of the jellyfish at DCA. If you're ever standing on Pixar Pier and you look out there, the jellyfish aren't wonderful. They're not great. I mean, they're fine. They're fine. I'm not knocking them at all. But it's so simple, right? But the kinetic energy that it brings by changing the direction, like you have to have something vertical there. You absolutely cannot ever.
Everything else is going around.
Yes.
This is going up and down.
Yes,
yeah.
and it was so cool. And that's kind of the thing where I think of the rocket jets back in Tomorrowland, and we'll get to the other things in that area coming up.
Okay. All right. So what? We're on number 2 then.
Yep.
This was something that I alluded to in the previous discussion about the holidays, but Big Thunder Ranch. For a lot of reasons, I miss Big Thunder Ranch. It went the way of Galaxy's Edge, and while I'm grateful for Galaxy's Edge and I love Galaxy's Edge, I do miss them goats. I miss the running of the goats, and I miss those seasonal things that they did back there at the in the show area, the Easter celebration, the Christmas celebration. They did a Halloween thing for a while. There was the Long Lost Friends. Big Thunder Ranch was amazing place to hold seasonal events. It was again, it's the way that I see Disney. It's the way that I see Disneyland, and being able to have those extra experiences, not just the rides, and not just the food or whatever. It's
right.
Big Thunder Ranch was perfect. It was
the
perfect.
Disneyland petting zoo.
The petting zoo, yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. That did not make my list though. But it's cool. I mean, it's just fun to think back. Sometimes we forget of the things that were in the park. Like, can you imagine a petting zoo, or can you imagine Big Thunder Ranch in Disneyland today? Like, it's super cool to think of, but there's like practical reasons why it probably wouldn't work. But also, it's awesome. It's so cool.
Yep.
My number 2 ties right into rocket jets. It's the People Mover.
2?
Yeah, because 1 is 1, and nothing will ever top 1. The People Mover. I mean, it's a 16-minute ride through Tomorrowland. It's that visual of so the rocket jets were above it, and you look at vintage Disneyland pictures, man, and it is as many classic. Some of your favorite pictures of vintage Disneyland are always going to include that visual of Tomorrowland, of the rocket jets, the People Mover, and other things in that area.
Monorail too.
And monorail, it was the vintage beauty of Disneyland, and with the vintage Disneyland sign out front. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah. My number 1 is the People Mover, and I'm just going to drop the mic right there, because the People Mover. If the People Mover were around today, it probably would be my favorite ride in the entire park. It is that is a ride built for me. Yeah, I got nothing else to add. You said everything.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, the fact that the Skyway didn't make your top 5 is disgusting. The Skyway is phenomenal. The Skyway is the single most, we talked about the rocket jets, the People Mover, and then the Skyway. Like, all of that visual. I don't even care if People Mover is the one where people would certainly get on it. But if the Skyway just moved without human beings on it, it would still be amazing. And if you don't think that it's not that important, go to my D23 Club on Instagram. Is the greatest. I've been corresponding with this guy for a couple of years. His name's Tony, and every single day he posts some of the most phenomenal vintage Walt Disneyland vintage photos and pictures, and I comment on his stuff commonly, especially when the Skyway is there, and I make a reference to say how beautiful that the shot is of seeing everybody in the 60s attire and just walk in the park, and just how phenomenal it is. And then I ask people to now use your mind's eye and take the Skyway out of the picture, and you can just feel the change in the energy.
That's dirty. That's dirty.
It's so true. It's so true. But the People Mover also applies, and so does the rocket jets. I mean, there was just something so visually appealing about all of that. So I agree with all of your 5 as well. I was just kidding. I think.
I would probably have Sky. I just don't have a very good memory of it. I don't remember ever actually being on it. So maybe that's probably why it's not higher on my list or on my list.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is it was a death trap. It scares the heck out of me.
Yeah. Your guy's back.
Yeah, that's why I stopped. I said it and muted, which is weird. That means he's just walking by. Which is okay, because we're gonna wrap that anyway, and then I'm gonna cue you up into. Actually, I'll start doing the wrapping up of the show. Like I'll ask you about anything else you want to add to today's discussion. Then I'll kind of wrap up the show. Or when do you want to get into the review, the Oogie Boogie Bash? So I'll say, David, any closing thoughts on today's discussion?
Yeah.
And then you can just go right into that.
Yeah.
If you want.
Okay.
Come on, what the? It's so annoying. I don't know what. It's just bizarre.
Yeah.
He must be like he probably went all the way to the other end and then he's coming back through.
Go ahead. Hold on. I need 5 minutes. Yeah.
3, 2. All right, David. That wraps up another interesting 5 things Disneyland, and it's just so much fun. Those are always so much fun.
Yeah, I enjoy those.
Yeah, just doing the homework, thinking about whatever creative ideas that come through. Some we come up with on our own. Just thinking about them, and then doing a little bit of research on them, and just kind of like reminiscing. And those things are just fun. It's super fun. So, any closing thoughts, David, before we wrap the show on today's discussion?
Yeah, we've got a kind fan of the show, a kind muffin, Mike, who said that he's got a couple tickets to Oogie Boogie Bash that he can no longer use, and he would like to gift them to a lucky follower of our show. So these tickets are for September 16th. They are dated, so you can't reuse them. So if you believe that you're going to be in town for Oogie Boogie Bash on September 16th, leave us a comment on YouTube or review or a comment on Apple Podcasts and let us know that you're interested, and we'll pick one out. I guess just at random. You don't have to do anything creative or anything to get that. But basically, I want somebody who certainly definitely can make use of these tickets because I don't want them to go to waste. So let us know in the comments or on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube. And if you're available to go to Oogie Boogie Bash, we've got 2 tickets for you on September 16th.
That's awesome stuff. That's exciting. So we appreciate the generous donation that's coming to us, and comment on it. And there you go. Lucky winners. Lucky winners. We love winners.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. It brings us to the end of today's show. So thank you for joining us on this fun discussion on Fantasyland. Gummy berry juice.
I'm going to go get me some gummy berry juice.
The golden... Big Thunder Ranch, all kinds of fun things. Top 5 Disneyland defunct attractions. There was all kinds of good stuff. So hopefully it was as insightful, thought-provoking, or just flat-out entertaining for you as it was for us. And as always, thank you for making Fresh Bake part of your day. Fresh Bake Presents a part of your day. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, and join us here next week, same time, same channel, and until then,
FreshBaked.
Nailed it. I love it.